Good morning, everyone. My friend has been in the trenches of physical fitness and health, inspiring leadership, making massive changes as a company. You probably know Microsoft. Here to hear his story and the impact he continues to make. It's going to be a banger, folks. Stay tuned. It's going to be a fun episode. Check it out. Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Talk Taryn Morning Show, where we go over tips, tricks, ideas, and exercises to make you the absolute best person you can be, not only for yourself, but for the people you love and care about most. Coming all the way from Seattle, it's early as heck for my man, Clark. Welcome him onto the show. Clark, my man, good morning.
Hey, what's up, Tanner? Morning, man.
We were talking a little bit before the show, and it sounds like you're a morning person as it is. You got a morning routine kind of locked in for yourself nowadays?
Heck yeah, every day. So up at 5 a.m. I like to get up earlier, but sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. But yeah, morning routine. I get up at 5, grab a coffee, and then I sit down. I hop on LinkedIn, and I immediately start commenting on other people's stuff. Because other people are awesome and they typically have a lot of great insights. And so I get to learn, I get to hopefully contribute back. After about an hour of that, I post my content, go get a workout in. And then after that, get my kids ready for school. And then it's off to the races. But that's typically every morning.
Man, good for you. Any secret sauces, or why is it so hard for people to get out of bed? It seems like the night before we'll have all this, I'm going to do it. And then the alarm goes off and you're just a completely different person. You're like, I don't know why that's so difficult.
Oh, because we love comfort, Tanner. And in bed, it's comfortable and it's soft and it's warm and it's safe. But a lot of times people are stuck in bed because they don't have that purpose that energizes them to get up and be like, bro, today I'm going to crush it. You know, the Stoics, are you familiar with Stoic philosophy?
Here and there. I like meditations a lot. That was good.
Okay, so in Meditations, Marcus Aurelius, I won't be able to nail this quote exactly, but he has this line in there about laying in bed. And I'll summarize because, again, I won't be able to quote it, but he states something along the lines of, when you're laying in bed, warm under the covers, think to yourself, is this what you were meant for? Or are you meant to get up and live? And I love that because it's so true. Like when we're in bed, yeah, it's comfortable, it's safe, it feels awesome, but we're not actually doing anything that we are going to be proud of. Now, on the other side of that, it's also true that if you need rest, get some rest, because sleep is magical and it does a bunch of things for us mentally, physically, but at the same time, got to get up and get after it.
It's so wild that it's because everyone, or this is kind of how I interpret it. It is really up to me to try and figure out that structure and system, because you can read in a book that you need to sleep this amount, or you need to get up at this amount, but life being life, you kind of have to interpret and navigate the waters on, like, when do you really need to rest and slow down? When do you really need to pick it up and go? And how do you like know when it's like time to rest? I feel like I have a harder, well, I guess I have a hard time with action too, but how do you really balance the two?
Dude, well, first off, let me acknowledge that the struggle is real. Personally, like as a health and performance coach, and like my background is in health and fitness. And so I used to preach and teach sleep. What does sleep do for the body? What does it do for the brain? Why is it so important? However, and we know this, like scientifically, there's reasons why we should sleep. But on the practical side, when you're sleeping, you're not doing. This is the story I tell myself, right? If I'm in bed, I'm not doing things. And if I'm not doing things, I'm not productive. Now, again, this is just a story that is not actually real, because when you sleep and your mind and body recharge, you can contribute more energy and focus the next day. So, okay, so that's not a logical reason why we don't sleep. It's an emotional reason. But really, your body will tell you. And you should notice that when you get less and less sleep, your cognitive function in the following days is sacrificed, is less. Um, there's been obviously tons of research on sleep, and I remember getting through. There was a paper written on. Again, I'm very good with themes, but the specifics I tend not to remember. But the moral of this research is when you get less and less sleep, and I believe it was like even 5-6 hours a night, your cognitive function the next day is worse than somebody who is intoxicated. And I think that's with like reaction time testing. But again, all of the story is like, okay, there's the theme is there's a relationship between sleep and cognitive performance, and they're comparing lack of sleep and being drunk. That's pretty powerful. Now, I would imagine that's on the spectrum. If anybody's tried to pull an all-nighter, you know that the next day is just practically worthless. There's been terrible research done on like prisoners and keeping them up for days on end, and they start to hallucinate and just have terrible physical and mental repercussions. So your body will tell you. Some people claim that they only need 4 hours of sleep a night. Like Trump says this, Kobe Bryant said this. On the other hand, like Gary Vaynerchuk, are you familiar with Gary V?
Oh yeah, love Gary.
He says, I get 8 hours of sleep a night. Like, I don't know what you're talking about getting six hours. I just work, the remainder of the time that I'm awake. Anyways, long answer. Your body will tell you, your mind will tell you, then it's just getting after it.
And I'd imagine having a background in fitness has really helped you sleep, has really helped you kind of create these healthy patterns and structure. Maybe it'd be a good time to kind of just go back and a little bit on kind of your journey on how far you come. And I mean, you've done a lot of really cool stuff already, man, and you're really rocking it too. Kind of maybe in the beginning days, kind of where did you get started in health and fitness, and then how did that kind of carry you into everything, the stuff that you're working on today?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. It's been a ride. So, let me first ask a question. Have you ever read Range by David Epstein?
No, I haven't.
Okay. So it's a wonderful book about the need for foxes and hedgehogs. And he states that hedgehogs are really good at one thing. They are specialists. Foxes are, those sly creatures, are good at doing many things. They're clever and they have a broader range of skills, so to speak. But range is all about specializing versus generalizing. Now, I bring that up because internally, like, my desire is to generalize. I love everything. I want to learn about everything. And so over the course of my career, and really just my life, it's been an internal challenge to try to focus on one thing or pick something that still allows for a broad range of learning, within that specialty. So that being said, I found health was that thing. I'd always been involved in athletics, played sports through high school. I loved science. Loved it, like how things work. I mean, science is magical. And I thought, well, I want to be an engineer because then I get to make stuff. I want to build airplanes and like work on cars and do mechanical things. And then I took a computer drawing class, a CAD class. And within the first like 6 minutes of being in that class, I no longer wanted to be an engineer because I didn't want to sit in front of a computer and draw lines and like, is this it? Now, obviously that wasn't it, but my first experience of that just completely turned me off to it. So the hard sciences right away, I was like, well, this is interesting, but maybe not my thing. And later in high school, I took a health class that was all about it was like physical therapy for high school kids. So how does, what muscles are where? How does the body work? What are biomechanics? How do you tape joints? Things like that. And I loved it because I was also playing sports at the time and exercising constantly. And so there was a connection between what I was learning and what I was doing. So we fast forward through college, played a little baseball in college, did more of that kind of experimentation between hard sciences and soft sciences, really crushed it in the soft sciences and loved it. So just continued. So in my undergrad, I started working as a personal trainer because fitness is awesome and it had helped me kind of come out of my shell and feel confident in certain things. And I wanted to help other people do the same. So I kept going through school, did undergrad. I went to grad school for exercise science. And right after that, I started working as a personal trainer over here in the Seattle area.
You talked a few things you mentioned about like matching like what you're learning with what you're doing seems like rocket fuel to learn and to like when I think of being a kid, like playing and just having fun, it was always like when there was a connection between the two. And it seems like a lot of us lack that connection. That's probably why it's so hard to learn stuff in general. And can you kind of elaborate on like why that's so important and why it's so important to you, this like connection between like the things that you're learning and also like the actions that you're taking?
Yes. Heck yes. There is a difference between knowing and doing. Everybody knows how to lose weight. Everybody knows how to get stronger. Everybody knows how to get rich. But doing it is completely different. Now, people will say, oh, I'm a visual learner, I'm an auditory learner, I'm a kinesthetic learner. Okay, cool. There's research to support that. But again, there's a difference between like understanding how something works and knowing it by doing it. Everybody is a tactical learner. Everybody learns by doing, whether you are visual, auditory, or kinesthetic. If you want to learn something, I mean, really learn something, you have to do it. Exercise is a great example, or like a laboratory for this, because it's very easy to say, oh, eat less and exercise more. Like that's the common advice. Now that advice is true, but most of the time it's unhelpful, because eating less and exercising more is part of calories in and calories out. And while that is true, that is just an oversimplification to know. To actually do that and really understand what influences calories in. Well, did you know sleep actually impacts your calories in? If you don't get a healthy night's sleep, you have two hormones that are affected. Your ghrelin goes up by 18%, leptin drops by 18%. One is a hunger hormone, one is a satiety hormone. You are much more likely to eat more throughout the day just because you slept less. And if you slept less, you give yourself more time over the day which you're awake in which to eat. So there's application, there's applicable learning that really you have to try and put into place just to see how it works. Like as a trainer writing programs for people, being like, oh yeah, this sounds great. I know that we're supposed to do this much volume and we're supposed to push you this hard, but dude, going to do it, I mean, you can crush people, and not in a good way. So everybody learns by doing. And if you want to really learn something and get good at it, you have to do it. You have to learn through application. Now, through that process, you also understand like what aligns with you as a human, what's authentic to you. So, for example, the work that I do now, um, between like how do I help leaders perform better in their lives and at work? There are a ton of different leadership styles out there. Just like there are a ton of different diets, there's a ton of different workout routines. Now you can know what different leadership styles are. Authentic leadership, servant leadership, adaptive leadership. But unless you put them into practice, you are not going to know which ones align with who you are and what's authentic to you, and what pieces resonate with you. So it's kind of like, I like to use like a hat analogy. You put on your servant leader hat and you see what that feels like, and you see what you like. You see what you don't like. You throw away what you don't like. You keep what you do. And then put on a different hat. Put on your coaching leader hat. Put on your transforming leader hat. See what you like. See what you don't. But you can read all the books you want. And if you never put it into practice, you never give yourself that opportunity to prune what you don't like and capture what you do like.
This brutal advice at the end. We got to try and figure out what works for us. Like what works for Clark may not work for me, or vice versa for your other clients. And it's interesting to me that just being like the level of understanding, like I can read a book and then I feel like I got a grip on it. And then, but the conviction I feel and my abilities when I'm actually like applying and doing and messing up. And for me and my girlfriend, we our side stuff is we have rental properties, and I read like 30 real estate books, and I was like, I got this. I'm a genius. And then 2 weeks into this one rental we had, I was like, what am I doing? I don't know what this is. I don't, but I feel like we learned more in the next like 2 months than I did in those 30 books combined. Dude. So I think there's definitely a place for both, but maybe it's what warms us up to the idea, or even see that the opportunities there, that we can to try and improve. So you've kind of now I mean, your energy is incredible. I gotta say. I mean, it is, again, for Clark, it is like 6 a.m. and dude, I just love listening to you talk. But were there some patterns when you were working with people in the fitness industry that you were able to really inspire that principle of leadership? Or what were some of the patterns that people were struggling with that you were able to like help solve to kind of reach some of their goals?
So here's, let me take a different swing at this question. So early in my career, I used to be very directive. I think that's probably the right word. I was going to say dictatorial, but there's a little, given my work now in leadership, there's a different connotation there. But like, I was the trainer and I had a master's degree. And not only that, like I led continuing education for this gym that I was at. And so I would read lit reviews, and I would teach our team about how does type 2 diabetes work? How do you, like, what lifestyle interventions, work to get rid of type 2 diabetes? How does blood pressure work? Nutritional things like, is gluten actually bad for you? Like, we could talk for 2 hours on this. And so I knew a lot of stuff, and I thought that the best way to help people was to tell them all these facts. This goes back to the conversation we just had. You just need to know more. And if you knew more, you would do more. Well, I think, once you hear that, it's like, yeah, but it doesn't work that way. And so I started to change my approach to be less like, oh, check out how smart I am, and be more of what I now know is a coach, where I ask questions. I'm curious. Yes, I still have the scientific guardrails on which our expectations live within. But within that, behavior change is all about the other person and helping them find and understand their blockers and create a plan to unblock themselves. So during that time, though, I will say there's common there were common challenges amongst the clients that we worked with. We actually had a couple of customer avatars, which we called the Joe and Amy. Forgive me if any Joe or Amy's are listening, but the Joe was our, like, again, these are customer avatars. So we took kind of the extremes of our experience and placed them into two people. The Joe was the person who was athletic all their life, played a ton of sports, maybe played some sports in college, was a type A high achiever, crushing it. And then they got a job and they're like, oh, it's go time. They put their complete focus into their work and their careers take off. But that comes at a cost. Typically, that comes at the cost of their own health, possibly even their relationships, because they're putting so much time at work. Well, 25 years go by, they're 45, 50 years old. Their health is a mess. And they also notice that their relationships are not quite as good, as they should be. So they want to fix this by getting back in shape, reprioritizing themselves. So that one set of problems for that individual is priorities. Like, what do they find important for what stage they are in their life? On the other side, we had the Amy. Now, Amy was the person who had always been overweight, picked last at kickball, hated PE, was made fun of anytime that, she tried to exercise or do something. So now has this negative connotation with exercise. But Amy has gotten to a place where her health has gotten so bad that she really needs help. She has type 2 diabetes. She has high blood pressure. She's got all these comorbidities. And if she keeps going, she's going to die at 55 or 60. So she would come to train and put her life in order, but with a different lens. This was around kind of the emotional impact that, or the emotional experiences that she had growing up. Regardless of the individual, it doesn't matter how much I know. What only matters is, can I help that person identify what they want, what their blockers are, and help them create a plan to achieve it. Now, those three things, that extends into any type of, coaching relationship. Now, it goes much deeper and broader than that, but basically, that's it. What do you want? What are your blockers? Okay, what are the action steps that you can take, knowing that you have these blockers and knowing what you want?
Is this something that people, I'm sure with a long enough time horizon, they can figure out? It's
Oh,
almost
yeah.
like these are blind spots to people, and then outside professionals. I know I was working with my life coach, and I didn't even know what I was doing to myself, but it wasn't good. And so is that like why it's so important to work with professionals so they can help find those blind spots? Or like if you're not willing to do that, like how do you kind of figure out the sign on your own? It seems like there's so many Joes and Amy's out there. I mean, that's why
Yeah.
you built a multi-million-dollar company, but yeah.
Yeah. So, well, and to be fair, I did not build a multi-million-dollar company, but I managed a medically guided weight loss program that
Mhm.
it brought in a ton of revenue. And it was like, dude, it was fantastic. It was like this 6-month program where there were doctors, dietitians, trainers, counselors. I mean, we had every health professional helping Joes and Amy's methodically lose weight and create habits where they can maintain a healthy lifestyle. But to get back to your question, people can do this on their own. You can make these changes on your own. It just tends to be slower because you read the book, you know it, but you're not doing it. So then you have to implement it. And You might journal, and then you prompts with some questions, and then you think about it, and then you rinse and repeat, and you see change over time. Like getting a coach, it just condenses all of that, where we can jump right in. Again, we kind of have these boundaries of what we're aware of, what works, what doesn't around behavior change. We can jump right into the questions to understand what you want, challenges, etc. So coaching just helps accelerate progress. But honestly, you can make changes on their own. I mean, tons of people have lost weight on their own, right? They just commit, they decide, and they do it, and they find the resources to do it. But yeah, if you want to accelerate progress, definitely get a coach.
I find it wild that, so with a lot of the people I work with, I created a system. It's called the One Page Life Plan, and just really a deep understanding of things like your values, your purpose, the vision, your relationships, these common topics. And I spent thousands of dollars getting these all buttered up and nice, the systems and this and that. And then, but everyone keeps telling me that their favorite part is just, if you tell me you're going to do this thing at 4 o'clock, I just call you. I'm like, are you doing it? And then they start and they're like, I got way more value out of just a 2-second call than all this other stuff. I'm like, it's just crazy to me how it really does kind of like just getting started and getting that action piece and like that accountability. It really is so special and tough. And, we're two coaches, right? Of course, we're saying coaching is important. I mean, you can join. I joined this landlord organization, and that was super helpful. People are just like, I'm doing this, do this. I'm like, okay. Or like you can get a mentor. I used to write handwritten letters to people. And
Nice.
yeah, I feel like there's just, there's really no right way to go about it, but just, it seems it's really consistent to just, you can go a lot faster and a lot farther with like human connection and support.
Absolutely. We humans, we are social animals. We need to be part of a group. We need it. It is not a want. We need to be part of a group. There's an interesting side effect about those group dynamics. People are more likely to rise to the expectations that other people hold them to than to rise to the expectations they hold for themselves. Most everybody is guilty. Well, guilty is the wrong word. It's just how it is. This is why your friend group is so important. Have you ever noticed, Tanner, do you have like different groups of friends where you might act a little bit differently than you do with other friends?
Yeah. Two completely different people.
Oh yeah. Your language patterns change. Your behavior changes, like how you think about what might be fun to do changes. And this is just a natural thing. We are social animals. We adapt to the groups that we're in. If you want to be a high achiever, hang out with more high achievers. And just by natural biology, you will start thinking and behaving more like a high achiever because we want to conform with the social group that we're in. Actually, I should take that back. It's not a want. We just naturally conform to the social group that we're in. There are ways to break that pattern. A lot of times, conformity comes from when we're not exactly clear on what we want. Therefore, we fall back to kind of this biological mechanism. But dude, it's so powerful. And coaches, having a coach or having like a mastermind group or a group of people that you talk to, they can serve as these, kind of social catalysts on changing your behavior.
I mean, it's funny how, like when you bring it up, I just think of immediately two specific groups I was thinking of. One is like people I was really close with in college, and the things that we do, and I'll tell you straight up, a lot of it's not very productive. And but it's like my fun time, and it feels like it's like my fun side of me every now and again. And then I'm friends with like a group of investors and stuff, and yeah, it's just wild to me how it is. It really is so different. And then the things that we do in those environments, I'm not even thinking about it. I'm just doing what seems right in that environment. So I guess, yeah, just
Yeah.
another nod to how important environment is. Are you in groups or organizations or like coaching yourself and things that you really like?
So I have mentor coaches that I work with. There's also, I have like a semi-weekly guys night, with my brother and some other awesome guys that are, if they're like a social group, which, keeps me pumped, keeps me going. I mean, these guys are doing awesome things. And so I want to do awesome things, and I do, right? So why not surround myself with other awesome people? And luckily I get the clients that I have are awesome humans. And so there's like bi-directional energy, right? I can motivate and rub off on them and help them figure out what they want, but at the same time I get energy from their passion, from their ambition, and their drive to achieve more.
That's incredible. This I wanted to take us kind of transition into from you transitioned and you worked at Microsoft
Yeah.
for roughly a decade. Could you explain kind of your journey with that and why
Yeah.
there and kind of what did it teach you along the way?
Yeah. Let me tell a story, Tanner. So okay, so I went from personal training to managing a weight loss program to a role in technology. That's quite a jump. And there was, um, right after that, I had a lot of people ask me, like, Clark, how did you do that? Like, can I do that too? And that answer is yes, but there was a kicker. It took 2 years, and it wasn't an intentional 2 years, but I had set the stage for that transition myself. And then I had help from a friend who saw the potential in me to make this jump as well. But when I was working at this health club, I had positioned myself as like the resident expert on health physiology. I was the guy that people went to if they had questions about hormone imbalances and weight loss physiology, or diabetes questions. So anybody who wanted to learn anything would come to me, including our clients. And we had or our members, and we had some members who wanted to learn about the physiological responses in exercise, and they happened to be a small group of people at Microsoft who were building a fitness device. So they wanted to talk about physiology, so they knew what sensors to put in their device. I mean, that's smart, right? Go find an expert. And so over the course of a few months, I taught them exercise physiology. And I wrote them like workout plans as well, because why not? Fast forward about 6 months, they've put together like an engineering device. It was the V.5 of what was known as the Microsoft Band. It was their fitness device. And they asked if I could help do like testing with it. Like, can I put it on? Can I do exercise? Can I write them workouts so they can do exercise? And I had a little work transition, and couldn't help with all the time that they needed. So anyway, so they kind of recruited. They recruited a friend of mine to help kind of lead this on-site kind of product development. And okay, so just fast forward like 2 years after doing this, right? So this friend of mine, they're looking for someone to kind of be the fitness expert on staff at Microsoft. And so he makes the jump over. And that was the first signal that's like, oh my gosh, that's possible. Like, you can do that. You can change careers. You can go from fitness into tech. He kind of served as that example. And I remember talking to him. I was so pumped for him. It was like, man, if you ever need help over there, I'd love to do that too. So fast forward another 6 months, his role had grown, where he needed help doing this like product testing, where they were part of the algorithms team, helping figure out how to make the heart rate monitor work. anyways, so he helped me transition over to Microsoft. And but it took years. I mean, it was not like, oh, you just do this one thing and next week you have a job. But it was so awesome. And Tanner, I remember like when I was doing contract work for them, I would go into the lobby. Uh, there's a ton of buildings on the Microsoft campus. I would go into a lobby in one of the buildings and just remember thinking like, man, what would it be like to work here, to wake up every day and build cool stuff? And sure as heck, man, like I was able to do that. I jumped on this team for the Microsoft band. It is still to this day the best working team I have ever worked on. Everybody was passionate about what they were doing. The work was purposeful. The people were amazing. The leadership was great. Like it was just rad. But the product wasn't selling, $1 billion a year. And so, it was quite an investment. And so the product got put on the back burner, So I had to find a different role. And I found a role in, it was called program management at the time. They've renamed it to product management now. But figuring out what products and what experiences to build for customers and helping the engineers figure out, what to build. Or they figure out the how, usually the PMs figure out the what. But during this time, like I'm still like technology is cool. You get to build cool stuff. I got to work on some really, really cool things. But at the same time, I could never scratch that coaching itch enough. Coming from health, I still had a bunch of people and leaders like wanting to know, well, how can I stay fit? Like, what's the best workout that I can do in the morning? How should I be eating? And so I was still involved in performance while I was at Microsoft. I know I've been talking for minutes here, so let me try to wrap this up. But
no, you're fine.
During that transition, Tanner, like when I was working in management, I'll take a quick step back and this will fold back in. When I was managing people at this health club, all of the problems that we had, if it came to a customer challenge or an employee challenge, everything was a fault in communication. And I mean, like everything could have been solved with better communication. And I wanted to learn, how do I help teach and like coach people to be better communicators? So I started learning coaching as a skill. There's an executive coach in Seattle. She had this like year-long program. So I joined and I did this training for a year. Well, during that time that I was doing that program, like right in the middle is when I made that shift to Microsoft. Now, while I was at Microsoft, this executive coach was running internal leadership development programs at Microsoft. And so I volunteered as a facilitator. And so for years at Microsoft, I was still involved with the leaders, teaching them coaching skills and doing leadership development while I was also a product manager. Which brings us to today. Like I went back to school, I got another master's in organizational leadership, did leadership development as an internal side gig at Microsoft for 6 of the 8 years that I was there.
Being able to handle the transition, like you already had multiple people coming up to you, so you can change, you can pivot and stuff.
Yes.
And now that you've experienced it, what are some takeaways that you have kind of outside looking in when it comes to this like decision of when to pivot? Because I feel like sometimes it's such a hard balance of knowing, like this idea of knowing when to quit, or it's because I feel like we can make really anything work, but is that really what we want to do with our one chance here at being alive? And so just kind of some wisdom and some insight from now looking back at it. How do you view like knowing when it's time to pivot and when it's time to like just keep diving into your work?
Good question. How do you know?
How did you know?
Eventually, you just got to take the plunge, because you'll never, this is intentionally like a superfluous, or not a superfluous, God, what's the name of the statement? I can't remember. There's a term for it. You'll never be 100% sure. And so eventually you have to just take the leap. But usually what happens is you've got those voices in your head, right? The one's like, no, don't do it. Keep yourself safe. That's too risky. Look how cozy these covers are in the bed laying here in the morning. And the other side is like, do it. You got to get up. You got to get after it. This is your chance. And, then I like to think that then there's us in the middle. We've got this negative side of ourselves. We've got this positive side of ourselves, the critic and the advocate. And then we get to choose who to listen to. But eventually, man, like you just gotta take the risk or don't. But you never really are 100% sure, because that voice will always have something to say to keep you in bed, to keep you safe, to keep you from taking risk. There are different things that you can try and that you can do to kind of mediate that risk. So there's a gal, Herminia Ibarra, who's a gosh, I don't even know what she does, but she's on LinkedIn. She wrote a great book called Working Identity, and she does a lot of stuff around career change. And she talks about something called the adjacent alternative. Is that if you're looking to make a pivot, where is an adjacent and alternative working opportunity where you can apply your skill set? So my adjacent alternative actually worked out at Microsoft because my expertise was in health and fitness. And I could take that expertise and I could apply it to creating a fitness device. During that time, I had to learn product management. I was also building expertise in leadership development, and I was doing that internally. An adjacent alternative is, well, can I just do that on my own and not at an internal company? But again, like it can take, years to develop. And so there is also a bit of patience that is required, balanced with, okay, pounce and take action.
The dosage and the formula. I like her methodology on this like adjacent pivot, and it gives me a lot of comfort in not worrying too much about the results or the title, but really one of my favorite speakers, rest in peace, Jim Rome, always just asking this question of like, who are you becoming? And if you become this person who's strong and skillful and loving, then these are the people who always get lucky to the next opportunity and kind of continue to leverage those skills and being focused on building those skills and becoming the person that you want to become. You mentioned Microsoft campus. What is that, like a college campus, or is that just a juggernaut place, or it's got to be absolutely just magnificent, right?
It's big. I mean, think of like a college campus. It's a campus because now I can't remember. When I was there was like 80,000 employees. When I left, there was, I think, 140,000 employees. And, you can't put all those people in one building. So it's literally a campus. There are a number of different buildings that are spread out all over the place. And then kind of sprinkled within there's places to eat, there's places to meet, there's apartment buildings. So it's something to see. And not only that, but they're going through a major, kind of rebuild right now. They tore down a bunch of buildings. They're upgrading a big part of the campus. The local area is putting in a light rail that's going from, Seattle to Bellevue out to my area and back. So there's a lot of growth in this area. Amazon is here as well. Starbucks, Boeing, Microsoft, huge companies are here, and they got to work and live somewhere. So the area is, it's growing.
How's I see this all the time so I got to go to Seattle recently. My girlfriend and we were staying with a friend there, and it was beautiful and sunny. It felt like San Francisco to me for the whole time we were there. And they're like, it's usually not like this, man. You got really lucky. And has the weather played a role? Does the weather bother you at all? Or is kind of that hoopla true about it being really gray all the time and kind of tough to handle?
So yeah, seasonal affective disorder is a real thing here, and I've had clients that really struggle with it. And I actually watched one of your videos where you comment on this as well. Um, there are times when yes, we will go 2 weeks where it's nothing but overcast and rain, and it is overcast a lot. However, there are sun breaks very often, and the summers here are the best because it's not super hot, but it's warm and it's green. Like it is just beautiful here. And not only that, like where we live in the Seattle area, you've got the Olympic Mountains to one side, you've got the Cascade Mountains to the other side. Now, these are not the Appalachian Mountains, right? These are like mini Rocky Mountains. We've got Mount Baker, which is up towards Canada, and Mount Rainier to the south. And so if you're like in Seattle and on a little hill, it is a beautiful area. The sound is there. The skyline is just like, it's really a pretty spectacular place. But yeah, summers are the best, the best. We joke that, the 2 months of summer we get in July and August are worth the other 10 months of weather. So yeah, there's a bunch of overcast. Now I've heard, I don't know if this to be a fact, I've heard that it actually rains more in inches in New York. We just have more overcast days.
I didn't know that. This, man, yeah, when we went there and we went farther east, can't remember what park we were going to, but just, yeah, it was, there's just, I don't know how else to describe other than just being alive. And there's like moss on the moss. And there's like this,
Yeah.
I don't know, just this lush like life to it. And it is really beautiful. You guys are very blessed in a lot of ways out there. That's really cool.
Heck yeah.
You plan on staying there for the foreseeable future? You say, I mean, you got your family there and
yeah, love it here. I mean, I love the outdoors. Like Idaho, Montana, parts of Oregon are also fantastic. But yeah, this is just a great spot. So I could stay here for a while for sure.
That's cool. Wanted to transition into some of your principles and biggest takeaways from leadership. Maybe you could educate us a little bit on what leadership means to you and kind of your philosophy on helping improve it.
Ooh, yeah. Man, big question, Tanner. So, well, let me share a struggle with you first. When it comes to exercise, there are 3 principles of exercise that all training plans, all workouts boil down to: specificity, overload, and progression. If you want to get better at something like running, you need to train specifically for running. So don't go do wrestling if you want to be better at rowing, right? Once you're training specifically, you have to overload the body. And with that overload, your body will adapt. So in order to continue making progress, you have to progress that overload. 3 basic principles. Now, all exercise rests on that foundation. Leadership does not have these agreed upon principles. So some writers will write about leadership as like a power dynamic. Others will lean in heavily on serving others, actually servant leadership. There's authentic. I've got a bunch of books here. Authentic leadership, which is about being true to yourself and leaning into building relationships. We have adaptive leadership on how do you lead through change. But unlike exercise, there's not a real core set of principles. But I could kind of wing it, which I think most people would agree with. Leadership implies really 2 things. Leading only means 2 things: is that you are going in a direction and that somebody is following you. Now that's it. Now, what can you do with those 2 principles? Then we have to ask, well, what does it take to go somewhere? We have to know where that place is, We have to know where we are currently at. Now, people are following us. How do we get the whole group from here to there? Well, we have to talk about things like motivation, inspiration, communication, skills and capabilities, both for the leader and the followers. What happens if there's a big roadblock in the way? Then what? And so, with just that simple, not a framework, but with those simple principles, you're going somewhere and someone is following you. At least one person is following you. That is leadership. Now, then there's a whole pile of things that we can sprinkle in there about what does it take to be a good leader. Now, a lot of people would agree that clarity on vision is paramount for effective leadership. And when a leader is not clear on where they want to go, they must be clear on how they need to show up in order to discover where they're going. Also, people will follow leaders if certain criteria are met, right? If their needs are being met. But kind of like with exercise, there's a difference between knowing and doing. My background in leadership is more limited than the people I help. Like, I've had management roles and I've been a leader in different roles that I've had. The leadership roles that I have had and the influence that I've had have been much smaller than the clients that I work with, who have to manage, tens of millions of dollars in revenue, or their products that are generating tens of millions of dollars of revenue. So being able to identify different frameworks for them to try, and then have them try on these different leadership hats to see what works for them and their situation, is very, not only helpful, but necessary.
I like how you put it, that there's really no specific way versus this kind of like identification and learning curve of finding your style, matching the needs and the problems of whoever you would be leading. And you might have to wear a different hat to support a different group to get from A to B. And you mentioned communication, and whenever I believe arguments are just a misunderstanding of what we're even talking about. I feel like when people are arguing, they're not even talking about the same thing. They're like, you need this and help with this. And then the other person's like, no, you need to be, it's like, we're not even talking about the same thing. We're just making noise at this point. I guess I wanted to get your thoughts on like communication, and what are some things that you've learned about it with your days at like Microsoft, and like how are you helping people better communicate now? It seems like we're really struggling with that, with communicating properly.
Yeah. Well, as humans, not only are we social animals, we are emotional animals first. Then we are logical. Jonathan Haidt wrote this book called The Righteous Mind: Why Good People Are Divided by Religion and Politics. And it's a book about morality and the brain and emotions and logic. It's a fantastic read if you have not read it. But in the book, Jonathan Haidt talks about the emotional brain versus the logical brain. And he calls the emotional brain the elephant. And the logical brain is the writer. How can the writer control or influence the elephant? I mean, the struggle is real. A lot of times when we're arguing about things and we're fighting, I think what people are really saying is, pay attention to me, recognize how I feel, validate my feelings. That's it. But when someone starts to yell, like personally, for me, I'm very emotionally reactive. And I know this about myself. This is like something I've been working on fixing. But when anybody around me brings up strong emotions, I immediately feel what they're feeling. And I have a reaction of like, oh my gosh, protect yourself, right? Put up the walls, be defensive. But that's not productive. Like, the most productive thing is to pause, recognize, empathize, see that other person and feel what they're feeling so that you can really understand where they're coming from. Nobody ever does anything wrong in their own mind. So if somebody is having a negative or strong emotional reaction to something, to them, it's fully justified. Now, leaders can learn a lot if they simply pause and listen and try to understand where that other person is coming from. They learn a couple things. They learn more about that individual and what they might struggle with, what their challenges are. Because leaders have to, like good leaders will adapt their style based on the needs of the individual. It can be exhausting, but it's impactful. So they learn more about how do I work with this person to help them. But they also, by really listening, they can see or learn, are there any flaws in our processes? Is there a way that we could actually tactically do things better so that we don't run into this challenge again? But the hardest part is controlling our own emotional brain. It is getting the writer to be like, yo, elephant, it's all good. Chill for a moment. Let's sit here and feel this out and talk about this. In a lot of communications training, difficult conversations, crucial conversations, fierce conversations, there's, emotions are always part of the equation. How do we remove the emotional baggage from the conversations that we have, while at the same time expecting that other people are going to be emotional and we need to control ourselves? And the struggle is real.
The rider and the elephant, it's so perfect because it helps people, myself, just better put into place like the power and the influence of our emotions versus logically. It makes so much sense. Earlier in the podcast, Clark was talking about people know how to lose weight, people know how to make money, people know, and so many of us struggle and are overweight and I mean lower middle class. I was looking at this research on people are just behind on their utility bills and don't have any money, and it's really tough, and we know how to get out of it, but our elephants are out of control, and being able to
Yes.
learning how to train and improve our skills, and then that leads into a lot of the opportunities that you had that are so cool to hear and listen about.
Yeah, you reminded me. It's about like needs and wants. Are you familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs?
Yeah.
Okay, so Maslow's got this hierarchy, and you've got your physiological, your basic needs, you've got your safety needs, and your social needs, and on top of that is self-esteem and self-actualization. and individuals have their rate of needing these different things changes based on how the previous need is being met. So somebody's not going to care about self-actualization, becoming all they can be, if their basic physiological needs are not met. Now, why do I bring this up? Because it relates to leadership, and it relates to like how people act. When people's base needs are not being met, when their physiological or safety needs are not being met, leaders can be more transactional and kind of get away with bad leadership. This is why people in countries where they don't feel safe, or they don't feel like things are fair, they are more likely to elect dictatorial leaders, because those leaders say, basically, I will keep you safe. I will make things fair. We will meet your basic needs. When those basic needs are met, though, the same carrots do not work to motivate somebody. So once somebody has their physiological, safety, and social needs met, and they're working towards like self-esteem and self-actualization, you need a transformational leader who's going to help them see what's possible for themselves and kind of co-create that path to reaching that ideal version of themselves. Like needs and emotions are tightly related. And so how we act, by being aware of what we need, we can better understand why we have these feelings pop up in certain situations, right? What's that fear voice saying? If you're hungry, the fear voice, that negative voice, is going to tell you different stories than if you've got a full belly and you feel loved and you're part of a group. You're just, trying to make the best of yourself. Like that, the negative talk is different in those different situations. Great leaders understand where people are at and can help them kind of get to that next level by helping them find ways to satisfy those needs, up the hierarchy.
That's incredible. It's so cool that you're able to use from all your learning and the things that you apply to really help people. Yeah, I mean, for a long time, I felt like I didn't even know where I was at. And it's really hard to get to, like, this sounds, I'm pretty sure this just spin off of like Tony Robbins. Shout out to Tony, one of my heroes. But like, it's really hard to get where you want, where you don't know where you're starting, and kind of going within and hearing the voices. And it's like, why is that coming up? Is there an environment that's causing that to come up again? Is it a belief or a story that I have about myself? Is there someone else who's overcome this that can maybe help me? Or just being, you talked about coaching and how you've transitioned into using a lot of questions. And it seems like we can use that amazing principle and start asking ourselves better questions. And when we start asking ourselves better questions, we can probably get better answers, leading to better results. So no, that's really beautiful.
Oh yeah. No, and I don't remember who stated that principle first around, if you want if you want better outcomes, ask better questions. You're absolutely right. Like, when you ask a question, your brain will come up with an answer. And when we constantly ask ourselves questions like, why are you so stupid? Why are you an idiot? All that negative self-talk, your brain literally comes up with an answer. But that's just one of the voices. You've got this other voice over here that's whispering other things. You can listen to that too. What would it take to do that thing that you want to do? How can you step out of your comfort zone? When are you going to take that risk? Your brain will come up with answers for that too. You're absolutely right.
That's so cool. Well, on that note, we're going to dive into, for folks, these will be answered by Clark himself on his perspective and how he's trying to apply these. But go ahead, if you haven't already, you can get your journals out and you can ask yourself these questions. We're going to dive into the coaching section of the show. Let me get rid of this and change a few things around. We're going to the chalkboard, folks. We're going to learn a little bit more about Clark as we're running through. How's everyone doing this morning? Maybe you're grabbing your coffee. Maybe you're just thinking of a few ways, people to connect to, things you want to do, what's going to make today great. But first question for you, Clark, I have is, what is one way that you can be kinder to yourself? What is one way that you can be kinder to yourself?
So my reaction here is actually gratitude. Gratitude. I used to think, Tanner, that gratitude was like this woo-woo thing that was like, the secret and vibrations and magic and whatnot. That was my emotional reaction. There is practical gratitude. When you remind yourself why things are good, what you are thankful for, you put yourself in that positive frame of mind. When you're in that positive frame of mind, you are more likely to give yourself grace and be kinder to yourself. So I really think there's a connection between gratitude and every emotion that you feel downstream from the moment you give yourself, or that you remind yourself of what you're thankful for.
Yeah, well said. Beautiful. Gratitude. On to the second one. What is one thing that you love about yourself? What is one thing you love about yourself?
I love that I love helping other people. There are, in some like spiritual circles, they talk about the two paths that the soul is on. There's service to self and service to others. Some people are just they are doing things so that they can achieve all the things that they want to achieve, right? Service to self. But service to others is really about exactly what it sounds like. I'm thankful that I have that disposition. It brings me a lot of joy.
Yeah, that's incredible. This self-to-service, I think, has really helped me in sales. I had a lot of fear, and I didn't handle rejection very well in the beginning. And I think this is really common. People I've gotten a chance to work with, and then when the mission became not even about me, but about helping other people, like how Clark answered, it's like the weight kind of lightened,
It's
and
purpose.
yeah,
It's
incredible.
purpose. Yes. Because remember, like when you want to help people, we talked about this. We are emotional animals. We are social animals. Helping other people kind of checks both of those buckets. It feels good and it's with others.
Checks both buckets, folks. All right, Clark, what do you want to celebrate at the end of the year? What do you want to celebrate at the end of this year?
There are two things that I want to celebrate. I want to look back on the year and feel proud and content with two things: the efforts that I've made with my own business. Now, the reason I'm not specific with an outcome is because outcome goals are great. I think process goals are more important because they lead to the outcomes. So I want to look back and say, yes, I did the things that I said I was going to do to try to achieve that outcome. The other thing that I want to be celebrating at the end of the year is just time with my family. The more that I regret, what's the right way to put that? I guess, I want to get to the end of the year with as few regrets as possible, right? And with all the effort that we put into our work and our daily lives, part of that, my process goal is make time with my family. Feel good about that by the end of the year.
Beautiful. I watched this documentary last night about Nature Boy Ric Flair, and Ooh. I grew up. I used to love WWE wrestling, and he was actually WCW. But either way, it was insane to me, like what happened with him and his story. People should go check it out. I thought it was interesting. Like he lived this big lavish life of what you think you would want as like an alpha male or whatever, the girls, the money and this and that, but really like what was going on underneath that. And one of the biggest things was like neglecting family and relationships. And it really came back to bite him. But that's really cool that you just have this understanding and you have your priorities in the way that you want. Next question for you is, what is your biggest challenge right now? What is your biggest challenge?
Biggest challenge is discovering the unknown unknowns.
What do you mean by that?
In order to continue to help people build a business, do coaching, there are known unknowns, things that I need to learn how to do, how to get better at marketing, how to be a more effective coach. Now, there's definitely a whole set of challenges there. Like, hey, just go execute all those things. Make the time to take the risk to learn those things. But there's that. Actually, maybe I should change that, Tanner. The biggest challenge right now is taming the fear voice and maybe convincing me that, hey, there's these things that I don't know. There's these things that you can't do. Like, what are you going to do to fix those things? But I think now that I say that out loud, I think that's just a story. And so I think that feels right. The biggest challenge is taming that gremlin that's like, what do you know?
Dude, you are a jet with so much of what you got. If we can just kind of condense it into and just streamline this stuff, dude. No, you're feeding fire, man. I think you're off to the races. Just a few things in line. Last question for you. What is your number one goal? What is your number one goal?
Yeah. I actually struggle with this one because between like short term and long term, one thing that I constantly revisit again, like on regret, is there's this book called The Five Regrets of the Dying, and it's about a hospice nurse that worked with dying individuals, and she wrote this book about what were the common regrets that they had, and things that popped up were like, I should have taken more risk, I should have spent time doing the things that I love, I should have made more time for family and maintaining relationships. And in like a short-term goal, like I want to build a thriving business which helps tons of people achieve all the things that they want to achieve. But in reality, that's in service of this end goal of getting to the end of my days on my deathbed, having a ton of stories to tell, surrounded by loved ones. Like that's what I want. So how do I do that? Well, I've got to do things that is, be my own hero in my own hero's journey and create a story that's worth telling, but making sure that does not come at the expense of the relationships and the people in my life.
Yeah. How could we rip it? Say if, we got an onion and we can kind of peel back a layer. Is there like writing a book, or is there like a boundary that we can set? Is there something how we could kind of peel this back just so we have something a little closer to measure for that number one goal? Like if you could kind of state it in a specific manner like that for me, a number one goal.
Yeah. I'll go back to kind of one of the things that I always talk about is around clarity, how clarity is king. When you have clarity, everything else will follow. But when you don't have clarity on the outcome, you have to be clear on how you're going to show up. So my goals right now, again, are focused on process goals because I don't know exactly what I want it to look like. I've told stories. Yes. Like at one point in my career, it was like, you know what? I want to own a gym. And another point, it was like, oh, I want to build a leadership development business. No, it's a personal development business. No, it's an education business. Like right now, my number one goal each day is to show up and serve and help as many people as I can to become the best people and leaders that they can become. If I can continue to do that, then my vision, my broad vision on what's possible will condense and collapse on like, yes, this is that thing that I'm going for. Like Cal Newport says, don't follow your passion. That's bad advice. Most people are not lucky enough to know what their real passion is. Instead, build a skill set, get good at something, and you will become passionate about it. I feel like I built the skill set. I know what I'm passionate about. I'll continue to do that thing, help as many people as possible, become the best people and leaders that they can be. And if I continue to do that, then yes, that tangible outcome of the number one goal, that will make itself clear.
Would you make it like a daily thing, like lead someone today? And then it's like a daily check-in that you're able to kind of like look at and just make sure that we're like on the path, right? Kind of this marker or goalpost that kind of helps make sure that we're in alignment.
Yes. Well, yeah. Can I help at least one person a day with one thing, whether that's a client, whether that's an online thing, if it's answering a question, is it simply asking somebody, how can I support you? But that is a process goal that I have actually is, have I helped somebody today or made an offer to help somebody today? I've actually got this goal. I've got this series of like goal trackers where I've got these 5 things every day that I strive to do. And then once I do that thing, just check, rinse and repeat.
Beautiful. Clark, ladies and gentlemen, you're very intelligent. You're doing the deep work. You have an awesome mission message, and it's been a total honor to get to know you. Over here on the side screen, I'm going to show you guys Clark's website. Oh, that's some branding stuff that I was working on. You can check Clark's over at his website that's in the description below. If you guys want to check out, he has a newsletter. I was checking out one of your newsletters, and it was I like your writing style, man. I'm excited to see you stay consistent with this. And so if you want some business development, leadership, some goodies there, additionally courses and coaching services. But if you're looking to be a better leader and unlock your full potential, sounds like Clark's your man. So
Heck
is there
yeah.
anything you want to add before we get out of here today, Clark?
Yeah, if people are curious to learn more, I'm on all the platforms, just as Clark Masterson. But a lot of the stuff that I post in these places are similar or the same. So you find me in one place, you've found me everywhere.
YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, pick your flavor, folks. He's on it. We're about it, and continue to make a massive impact. And can't wait to stay in touch with you, my friend, and kind of hear more about your journey along the way.
Heck yeah, Tanner, this was great, man. Thank you very much.
All right, folks. Say bye, Clark. We're out of here. We're sending the intro out. You guys have an incredible, incredible day. In case you needed to hear it, I love you. You're a badass. You got this. Make it an incredible Wednesday, and I'll see you on tomorrow's show. Cheers, friends. Say goodbye, everybody. We're out.